and I said, hey, if I bring you $1 million, can you give me a percentage of the deal, of the rewards that you'll get as the deal maker?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and the wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Let's talk about the strategy about buy and refurbish, rent and refinance, because all property strategies don't work always in all locations. So how do you find that this strategy work in your location, and how do you spot this opportunity? And if this strategy is available also today, or it depends on what part of the United States, what people should be looking at if they want to start to do this model? Definitely hire a mentor like you. That will help, right?
I think it always can work. And so there's better times in the market cycle and worse times in different market cycles. There's better geographies to invest in and worse geographies to invest in. But the best part of that strategy is also called value add. It's a value add strategy where no matter what's happening in the marketplace, you're improving the value of an asset because of the work you're putting in. And so even if maybe the rents don't go up as much as you expected, or the values come down because of interest rates going up, as long as you're creating value, you have a higher probability of success. And that's not to say it's foolproof. I did have in this kind of COVID period, I bought a few assets that unfortunately I financed them with variable rate financing. The costs of my mortgage doubled. The result of COVID were the president installed a policy where I couldn't kick out my tenants even if they didn't pay. And so I had tenants that weren't paying, a mortgage that doubled, and I ended up losing a few properties. And again, that is to show you that even someone like me that's experienced, that's done a lot of real estate investing, it doesn't mean that every acquisition's foolproof. It depends on what risks you're taking going in and what the rewards are going to be coming out.
So then, but again, how you structure this business so something like this doesn't collapse your all your wealth, because sometimes you get dragged for trying to save few properties. You start to pull out from assets that they are producing, and now the small problem become a big problem. How you protect yourself?
So I did that. I had, let's just say I had a $200,000 investment of my own capital in a building, but I had $4 million of my friends and family. And then when there was a problem, I wanted to try and save it. And so I ended up putting, $1 million into this project and $1 million into that project. And the reason I was doing it is because I didn't want to ask my investors to put in that money, because I felt like it was my problem to try and deal with. And so I was kind of pouring my own money into these deals. And unfortunately, I lost all that money. But the good news, the great blessing that I have is that, again, I have an asset protection plan. So if the bank says, I didn't get enough money and you guys still owe me more money, they're not going to get it from me. They're not going to get it from my investors because of the way the deal was structured. And even though it was millions of dollars, it still didn't impact, where I was going on vacation or the clothes I was buying, right? So I think everybody's got to size their risks appropriately and recognize that you're not going to always succeed in everything you do, especially if you're starting a new business. Only 4% of businesses get to $1 million in revenue. Only half of businesses, I think, survive 5 years, and maybe it's only 25% that ever survive 10 years. So even a good idea, it's hard to make it work in the long run. So you've got to make sure you've got, all of the ducks in a row that you need to have confidence and put you on the right track to getting your first million.
No, these big projects that you require investment, this is now a big development, right? You're talking about a block of flats where a lot of people are they are investors, and then the deal is structured that they get a return. Is that correct?
Yes, and I was doing that, because as I mentioned, I started with this 2-family house. Then my wife and I bought another 2-family house. Then we bought another 3-family house. And what I realized for me was that I was mentioning before a return on time calculation. So it ended up that probably one night a week I had to deal with a tenant issue. Maybe one day on the weekend I was dealing with a tenant issue. And so at the end of the year, when I looked at my investment returns, I was pretty happy because I was generating, let's say, about a 14% return on my investment. But then when I looked at how much time I had put in and I multiplied the time by my hourly rate at my job, my investment returns, all of a sudden they went from 14% down to almost nothing. And so I said, maybe I'm in the wrong business. How do I leverage my skill set, my network, my interest, and my capabilities? And what I decided was, after the great financial recession, instead of buying assets on my own, I was going to pool money with other people. And despite having some recent failure, I had a 12-year stretch where I made money hand over fist. And it was, great times in a bull market in what I was buying, which was C-class, value add multifamily in the Southeast.
But this is a buildings or a property portfolios.
Buildings. Large buildings, 100-unit apartment complexes, 200 units. The largest one was about 700 units.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah.
Wow. And you guys go in and refurbish everything, and refinance, and oh my God.
Yeah. So instead of doing them one at a time, and my conversation with our investors was, they were considering, should I put $50,000 as a down payment on a $200,000 condo and then renovate it and refinance it? Or should I give 50 grand to Noah and his team and let them do everything and let me focus on my job, let me focus on where I'm making money and what I'm good at? And that's the role that we played for them. And thankfully, over time, our investors made a lot of money. And unfortunately, in some deals, they lost it all.
Yeah. So then, so what, but how you did the first one? Because when you go to do a first one, everything starts from the first one, right? Because, okay, you're doing this with the houses, yeah? But now going to commercial property with several units, now it requires different skill set, requires different experience. So how you did the first one?
Yeah, so I started where I was buying them myself, as I mentioned, and even the first one,
yourself?
I didn't have to put any money down. So the first kind of 2-family house that my wife and I lived in, it was $232,000 that we had to pay for it. It was brand new. I got the seller to give us a $7,000 concession. And at the time, there was a 3% down mortgage product. And so I put down the 3%, but at closing, I got a $7,000 closing credit, which covered my down payment. And so I was able to basically, essentially buy with nothing. The second home, I used a line of credit on the first home to make my down payment on the second home. Then the second home, I had the rental income. Then we bought the third home using the lines of credit off of the two of them. And so there's always a way to get started if you're creative. If you don't have the capital yourself, but you have the drive, people are going to notice who you are. And that's, again, one of those reasons to build your network. Because if you don't have the capital, but you've got the stamina and you've got the drive, well, you're going to find someone in your network that's going to want to give you their capital because they want your hustle working for them. And you just use that. And for me, after the great financial recession, when I decided to get into larger commercial properties, I basically found a partner who was already in that business. And I said, hey, if I bring you $1 million, can you give me a percentage of the deal? That's it, of the rewards that you'll get as the deal maker. And so I went around to my friends and family and I said, hey, I've been investing in real estate. This is how I'm doing it now. What do you think about putting 50 grand or 100 grand in? And I was able to put $1 million together and get myself an interest in a big commercial building.
Wow. So So I think that when you go to commercial, right? Now again, no new skill set need to be learned, because the way that you invest in the houses and you get the cash flow for the houses and everything is completely different than how you operate. Doing a bidding and doing so. How because now you need to work with largest teams, with largest budgets, and you have to make sure that the value is there, so you can refinance and then buy another big unit, right? Yes, and again, when the banks are always looking at to give you some money, like if you have done it before, correct? So how you overcome
Yes.
all these
Through partnerships. I try not to accomplish anything on my own. I always find that I'd rather have, instead of 100% of a grape, I'd rather have 10% of a watermelon. And so that time and time again in my life, I found people that I could surround myself with that valued the skills and abilities that I brought to the table. And they had certain experiences and business acumen and networks that they could use and complement with my skill set. So in the real estate business, I'm what's known as a capital raiser. I'm somebody that aggregates capital. So I'm the one collecting checks from people, and then I'm partnering with operators. So I probably partnered with, 24 operators, people that every day they're out looking at property, they're changing toilets, they're, giving tenants tours, or they'd rather have teams of people that are doing that on their behalf. But that's their focus, is operating a multifamily asset. Whereas my expertise is in understanding the economics of a deal, describing that to a potential investor, and bringing those investors into the deal.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.